Power doesn't just shatter. It doesn't collapse overnight. No, it erodes. It unravels piece by piece. And it all starts when a leader becomes more afraid of losing control than they are of anything else.
Let me ask you something that should make absolutely no sense. Why would any leader help their sworn enemy right in the middle of a war? It sounds insane, right? Well, that's exactly what we're seeing. Donald Trump, in the middle of a hot conflict with Iran, just lifted oil sanctions. And you have to understand, this isn't a power move. This isn't coming from a place of strength. This is coming from a place of pressure.
At the very same time this is happening, you've got the Pentagon, and they are practically begging for over $200 billion. Think about that number. And they're not asking for it to get some kind of edge. No, they're asking because they are literally running out of weapons, running out of ammo, and running out of time.
And look, they're not even trying to sugarcoat this. Pete Hegseth just comes right out and says it. It takes money to kill bad guys. I mean, how much more raw can you get? That's the brutal justification for a system that is clearly creaking under the strain.
But while America is showing all these signs of strain, Iran isn't waiting around. They act. A direct strike on Qatar, and boom, just like that, 17% of that country's entire LNG export capacity gone, vanished. This wasn't some warning shot across the bow. No, this was a direct, calculated hit on the entire global system.
Okay, but this next part might be the most bizarre, the most disturbing signal of all. You have a war heating up, you have global supply chains fracturing, and what is Donald Trump focused on? What is he posting about? Expensive sneakers. Seriously. In Riyadh, a city that is itself a target. This isn't just a simple distraction, folks. This is what a total fracture of focus looks like. And that right there, that's where power truly starts to bleed away.
All right, so let's unpack this, because what you're seeing, these aren't just random, chaotic events. They actually fit into a very old, very predictable pattern. It's a pattern of power under immense pressure, one that, believe it or not, Niccolo Machiavelli warned us about centuries ago. We're going to call it the Machiavellian pattern, that moment when fear completely replaces strategy.
And right at the heart of this pattern is something we call the Machiavellian turning point. It is that exact moment the switch flips and a ruler starts to fear losing their grip on power more than they fear their actual enemies on the battlefield. And once that fear gets in, everything, and I mean everything, changes.
So you can see the shift right here. On one side you have strength, on the other, fear. Proactive, strategic moves get replaced by panicked, reactive concessions. Coherent actions, gone. Now it's all about contradictory signals. A leader stops commanding and starts justifying. You go from shaping the world around you to just desperately trying to stop the bleeding.
And this is so crucial. You have to look at the signals. You escalate a war, but then you remove sanctions. It makes no sense. You authorize strikes, and then you turn around and blame an ally like Benjamin Netanyahu. You demand dominance, while at the same time you're begging Congress for money. Now, to us, on the outside, this just looks like pure confusion, right? But to an enemy, they don't see confusion. They see weakness, and they see a golden opportunity.
Okay, so this is where it gets even more dangerous. What happens next in the pattern? Well, once a leader starts losing control of actual events on the ground, the very next thing to go is the story, the narrative. And that's when reality itself becomes the battlefield. So you hear it directly from Donald Trump. His words are clear. Iran doesn't have the capability. He's trying to project this image of total control, right? He's trying to manage our perception, painting this picture of a weak, basically defeated enemy.
But the reality on the ground tells a completely different story. Missiles are still landing. They're hitting Qatar. They're hitting Riyadh. And it's not just talk. We have General Dan Kane confirming it. Iran's capability is very much intact. The strikes are real, and they are hitting what they aimed for.
And right here, this is the critical moment. When the official story and the hard truth on the ground split this far apart, that's when power doesn't just erode, it starts to bleed. That gap between what's being said and what's actually happening, that's where a leader's credibility, their authority, their control, it all just begins to collapse.
So what's the next play in the book? You shift the target. Pete Hegseth comes out again, but this time he's not aiming at the enemy. He's aiming at the messengers. The press is dishonest. It's a classic move, right? If you can't control reality, you attack anyone and everyone who dares to report it.
Let's be very clear about what this is. This is not a sign of confidence. This is damage control. It's a containment strategy. And what it's really telling you is that the narrative is slipping out of their hands, and the real situation is probably a lot worse than we're being told.
And this is where the cracks start to show for everyone. The battlefield expands. It's not just about missiles and political spin anymore. No, now it starts to infect the very systems we all depend on every single day. This is the point where the chaos at the top starts to hit home.
Because you have to understand, Iran's influence over the Strait of Hormuz, that's not just some abstract military problem on the other side of the world. It sends shockwaves through the global supply chain. Suddenly, jet fuel supplies are uncertain. That means your long-haul flight might get canceled. The trucks that bring food to your grocery store, they slow down. Industrial production starts to feel the squeeze. It's a domino effect, and it's already in motion.
And just to make things worse, while all of this pressure is coming from the outside, there's this enormous pressure building from within. A national debt that is screaming past $39 trillion. The system is being squeezed from both sides at once. How much can it take? And then, it gets even darker. The conflict enters a terrifying new phase. We hear that journalist Steve Sweeney has been targeted in South Lebanon. Now, think about what that means. We're past just trying to control a story. This is about silencing information itself. It's a huge red flag that things are destabilizing, and they're destabilizing fast.
So at this stage, we have to be honest. We are way past the point of talking about winning. That's not even on the table anymore. The entire game has changed. Now it's just about trying not to lose control completely. We have crossed a line. This is the point of no return. And here's the final tragic mistake a leader often makes in this situation. They think more force, more aggression will somehow put the genie back in the bottle. But Machiavelli warned us about this too. Escalating things without any real stability doesn't solve anything. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. It only accelerates the collapse. It multiplies the chaos.
So where do we go from here? The options have narrowed. The future has basically split into three pretty bleak paths. Path one is what you could call controlled escalation. You know, more strikes, throwing more money at the problem. It might buy some temporary stability, but the long-term damage will be so much deeper. Path two, a strategic retreat. You try to de-escalate, spin it as some kind of victory, but everyone knows it's a loss of dominance. And then there's path three, miscalculation. One strike that goes too far. One mistake that sparks a chain reaction that no one, absolutely no one, can stop.
And here's the most chilling part of all of this. History never ever announces its turning points with a bullhorn. They don't make headlines. No, they hide. They hide in the noise of the 24/7 news cycle, disguised as just another day's events. They unfold quietly, piece by piece, until one morning you wake up and it's simply too late to go back. The pattern is in motion, the pieces are moving, and the only real question left for us to ask is, which one of those paths are we already on?